Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Modernising CX and Citizen Service Delivery for Government webinar this morning. It's great to have you all on here to listen to our fabulous speakers today. I'm very excited to share those people and their presentations with you. So a little background for why we're putting on today is I'm sure you're all aware, but cloud innovation is considered crucial to both Australia's economic recovery and prosperity. Migrating to the cloud is an inevitable journey. So while the public sector leaders may recognise the value of cloud tech, for many the adoption remains a challenge based on security and compliance, budgetary realities and existing roadmaps. So with that, we're super excited to share today's CX webinar, and doing so through cloud optimization and the wonderful benefits that cloud can bring to accelerating innovation and modernising service delivery. And I just wanted to kick things off today with a couple questions for the audience. We'd love to know what you guys are thinking and where you guys are at in your journey. And whilst we've got all the questions for our speakers today, I'm sure we want to ask you some questions too. So we'll have poll questions throughout the day. So make sure you engage with those, and we'll have Q&A times for our speakers. But the first question I want to ask you, the audience, is top cloud challenges you are facing today. Is it organizational culture and mindset? Is it legacy processes, or is it financial management of cloud consumption? So have a look at those, and then we will have a look at the results. So the top cloud challenges you are facing today, our audience has said half-half, 50-50 is legacy processes and financial management or cloud consumption. So that's very interesting, and it's great to see that you guys engaged that poll. So thank you so much for doing that. I wanted to introduce our conference chairperson who will be helping me out today with some of the facilitation. Please welcome everybody, Mike Inge. So Mike is the Regional Sales Manager at NEC, and NEC have really sponsored the event and partnered with us today, which we're so excited to have them supporting the event. Without those guys, we wouldn't be able to put on things like this. So Mike, thank you so much for joining us and helping me out with the facilitation of today. Remarks and a bit of an introduction to NEC as well.
Thanks, Isaac. It's really great to be here today and putting on this first of 3 webinars over the next 3 months. So this is a good day for us. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. What I will trust you will find an informative session working with our partner, AWS, and an esteemed panel of guests. For those who may not know much about NEC, we've got an extensive national client base and includes federal, state, local and territory governments across Australia, giving us a unique insight into some of the challenges and opportunities the public sector faces. We're hearing from our clients that resources to support the agile delivery of citizen services in the cloud is a key imperative. In order to deliver these services, we know there are several issues you're facing, such as skills shortages, on-demand resourcing requirements, the need for business agility, and of course budgetary funding. These types of issues can be addressed working with partners like NEC, as we've built the depth of capability that can assist you with the challenge to embrace transformative change in a pragmatic and consumable approach respectful of the outcomes desired and the risk profile you're willing to embrace. In the wake of COVID-19, the pandemic and the organisation efforts to sustain themselves and recover, the focus towards cloud is increasing rapidly. Cloud services present many opportunities, including flexibility, business continuity, spend optimization, improved collaboration and scalability. Embrace of cloud platforms and services are proving key to business, the imperatives to remain competitive in this global economy and digital transformation. Migrating to the cloud is an inevitable journey. While public sector leaders may recognise the value of cloud technology, for many, the adoption remains a challenge based on aged and bespoke systems, security and compliance concerns, budgetary realities and existing roadmaps. The constant we face is the demands of our customers and how they wish to interact with us, and our need to embrace new services through modern and innovative solutions. With that in mind, it's my great pleasure to introduce our partner, Amazon Web Services, Emma Whitty, who's our Cloud Advisory Consultant, and Craig Fox, who's the Public Sector Cloud Advisory. Craig's really well equipped to lead the conversation topic today, as he spent a good deal of his time in the public sector working at the ATO and delivering their cloud transformation journey. So Craig, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thanks very much, Isaac, for that kind introduction. And welcome everybody to this morning's conference call. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of spending the next little bit of time talking to you about cloud journeys, and particularly about some of the experiences that we're seeing customers go through in terms of their cloud journey working with us at Amazon Web Services. So looking forward to this morning. A little bit of background, Mike covered a little bit. I spent 34 years at the Australian Taxation Office, and the last gig that I had with the ATO was helping them with their cloud transformation. If everybody's done the right thing so far in the 2021-22 financial year, and you managed to complete your tax return and you completed your tax return on your smartphone, you'll be pleased to know that all of that was done using cloud, and it's all done on AWS. So it's probably a really good example of a cloud project inside the public sector that's been successful. So I spent about 34 years at the ATO working on a whole raft of things, but primarily at the end working with cloud. And then the last 4 years I've been with Amazon Web Services working with customers, both federal level, state level, and then also across Asia and Pacific, who are also going through a cloud journey, and trying to share not only some of the experiences that I had at the ATO, but also help guiding them on their own unique journeys towards cloud. For those of you at the moment sitting there desperately trying to do the math about how I could look this young, having done 34 years at the ATO and 4 years at AWS, the reason being I started at the ATO when I was 4 years old. That's why still looking as young and fresh as I do, despite having over 40 years on the clock in terms of working across the public sector. So for those of you doing the math, that's the reason. So I'm going to spend about 15 or 20 minutes talking about cloud optimization. I thought I would start with just a kind of general sense that, and Mike used the word, there's a sense that a cloud is kind of inevitable, and there is a little bit about that now across the public sector. So there's no longer a kind of conversation when I first started with Amazon. It was really around, so what is cloud and why do I need to go there? That was the most common question that leaders were asking. And I would say, probably talking 2017, 2018, that why do I need to go there was as much about finding a reason not to go to cloud as there was to try to find a reason to go to cloud. I'd probably share, and this has particularly been relevant since COVID hit, is that what we're now finding is that customers are really transitioning those conversations to no longer what is cloud and why do I need to go there. They're starting to talk about, so how do I get there and who can help me get there and what way do I go there? So we're really seeing a dynamic shift away from why now to how and who can help me get there. And what we're also seeing with customers is it's becoming a conversation around how do I leverage cloud going forward in a way that takes advantage of the innovation that I want to drive in terms of the future, but being really pragmatic about the financial and the kind of resourcing decisions that you've made in the past, and being pragmatic about that so that you can optimize your cloud investment to be able to take your business forward. So in terms of just kind of setting the scene about how to modernize your customer experience and delivery around cloud, we're really now seeing everybody having conversations around how do they get there and who can help them. And it's fantastic that you've taken the time this morning to join a conversation about cloud with a partner like NEC, who I work a fair bit with, because they've really got some great and innovative ideas on how to help customers. Kind of wanted to start with, I've only got about 4 slides, kind of wanted to start with the idea about working the cloud is, and I'd probably say this is probably one of my first guiding principles, is the sooner you start, the better you're going to be. And you kind of don't need to have figured out every single thing about moving to cloud before you start. There's a balance between, and as you know, I spent a lot of time in the public sector, there's a balance between thinking that you needed an absolutely well-articulated, to the nth degree plan about moving to cloud. You certainly need to have some planning about getting that journey right. Balancing that with the kind of really significant gains that you can kind of get both from a technical point of view about understanding how workloads run on the cloud, but also about your own organisation, what skills and experience your people are going to need as you make that move from operating either in an on-premise data center kind of situation, and then starting to take advantage of moving to cloud and the full depth and breadth of services that cloud brings. So start by going, it's really important to kind of get that planning balance right with a really strong bias for action for starting something. What we are seeing, and we do this really strongly across AWS, is there's a really clear, we call it our migration acceleration program, but it's really a framework that drives a customer journey. And we're really seeing customers do that in an assess, mobilize, migrate, and modernize way. And what you'll see there is that those phases don't necessarily mean that you need to tick all the boxes that you see on the screen right now, but if you think about a program for your journey where you start with assessing what you need to be able to do in terms of migrating to cloud, and we really focus that on creating the case for change. What you'll see there on that assess phase is really, it's probably going to break it up into what's the key business outcome and what's the key technical outcome. One of the key business outcomes, one of the key technical outcomes that you get out of the assess phase of our MAP framework is an understanding about what your current application and workload portfolio is and how suitable those applications and workloads are for a migration to cloud, and what sort of migration to cloud you should take. If you've been kind of doing some research in the cloud industry, you'll know about concepts like lift and shift or rehost compared to moving towards a complete re-architecture or taking advantage of cloud native services. So platform services versus infrastructure as a service, as an example. One of the key things that we're seeing customers need to do from the point of view of getting started and optimizing your cloud journey is to really get through that assess phase and have a really data-driven assessment of what applications you're currently running and where do you think they need to go in terms of your cloud journey. Interestingly enough, one of the things that we do at Amazon is we pivot really strongly on workloads that don't need to go to cloud. We'll talk to you, for an example, about workloads that need to be retired. There might be some workloads that you want to retain in their current state because they've got a shelf life. There might be some SaaS options that you're thinking about taking advantage of. So you don't necessarily end up with every workload that you have needing to migrate to cloud, but what you do get is a really clear idea about which ones should go and what way they should go so that you can really drive that business value. What you're also seeing customers do in the assess phase, and we've got a particular tool at AWS called a migration readiness assessment, you're starting to get an assessment of what the organisational capability is to be able to kind of undertake that journey to cloud and then run workloads on cloud. So we do a lot about trying to understand people issues. We do a lot about trying to understand what the skilling and enablement plans need to be. We're seeing customers do a real lot of work around their operating models. We're seeing them start to explore doing some innovative work with new partners. So the assess isn't just about your technical real estate. You want to try to optimise that part of the journey. You're also trying to optimise the investment that you need to make in your people to be able to take that journey successfully. What we're also seeing customers do in that assess phase, we've got an icon there called the TCO report. We're seeing people try to drive out what's the economic outcome that I'm trying to get out of moving to cloud. I've got a slide a little bit about that later on, but they're also getting, and I've noticed before, you're kind of covering those three areas about what was driving you to cloud. There was the bit about the financial aspect, there was the bit about technical debt, and then there was the bit about culture and behaviour. Committing to a robust enough assess phase. We don't say that customers are doing this for 6 or 12 months. You can do this in an agile manner, but committing to a really assess phase is going to be able to set you up to move forward. What we're then seeing customers do, and again, focusing really strongly on optimizing your unique journey to cloud so that you realize the business value that you want, you start to pick in this mobilize phase. I'll just pick a couple of examples here. One is that what we do see is the creation of a landing zone. A landing zone for us is putting in place the necessary cloud foundations from a technical perspective so that you can actually run workloads on AWS. So it's really important that one part of your journey starts to think about the investment that you're going to need in creating the cloud platform that you want to consume on so that you can actually migrate and run workloads. So there's that mobilize bit, and that will be a really good opportunity for your own teams to start to gain experience, particularly around concepts like security, governance, identity and access management, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of work in that mobilize phase about setting you up with the right foundations, again, with the key principle that once you get the foundations right, you can move forward at scale, securely and safely. The other kind of area around mobilize that I wanted to talk about was migration experience. And this is where I spend a lot of time with customers. And at the risk of kind of slightly contradicting myself, you do want to go through a really strong assess phase to identify what workloads need to move to cloud, but you'll absolutely have some candidates that you already know are earmarked to go to cloud, and you want to be able to move those. I'm thinking about primarily systems of insight and systems of engagement. You might have a data analytics platform that you want to start thinking about running a data lake. You might have a website or an online workload that's a really good candidate for cloud. So what we also see customers doing is picking a couple of those really good quick wins, certainly based on some degree of discovery, but then using that to gain migration experience, which therefore it complements the work that you're doing technically on your landing zone and really helps to give your people and the teams inside your organisation an opportunity to move to cloud. We really strongly commit to recommend to our customers that if you want to optimise for business value and success, investing in the mobilize phase is critically important. Make sure that mobilize phase is based on data-driven assessment exercises, and then that leads you to our last one, where you can actually accelerate migration at scale. Once you've created that case for change and once you've actually gained those relevant migration experiences. I've got customers that their migration journeys are over a 1 to 2 to 3 year program. Not necessarily saying that it takes to the end of the third year in order to get their value, but what we are working on is large real estate, 500 to 1,000 applications, 2,000 virtual machines, plus understanding what workloads are going where, starting with something that actually demonstrates some really strong business value, getting their people trained, getting their people involved in those early migrations, and then rolling out a migrate, operate, and modernise. I will just leave you with kind of one point about the migrate and modernise. We also are recommending to customers that the optimisation journey never ends. So you do move workloads across. I've got lots of customers moving workloads across. Then once they get those workloads across, they get an understanding of how cloud works. Then they're starting to go down optimization and transformation programs as well. So think about the fact that while you kind of might start with workload running in X data center, workload then runs in Y cloud platform, you're constantly using the depth and breadth of cloud to actually innovate on that workload and continue to try to drive business value. In terms of, again, just an optimizing journey, that's an overarching framework that we recommend to customers think about. Assess, mobilize, migrate, and then modernize. Now, I talked before a bit about one of the key important parts and there's always a conversation about economics. So why do you go to cloud? And I'll put a great big box around the fact of cost savings or total cost of ownership. It's an incredibly important conversation around cloud, and there's absolutely no doubt that every organisation that I'm working with, I was saying this to the team yesterday, 9 out of 10 conversations with customers about cloud still start about cost. How do I save money? And in particularly now where IT budgets are becoming tight, how do I save money to be able to invest in other areas? Still a really strong driver is the driver around how you go forward in terms of economics. But what I would start to say is I really would encourage you, and I'm hoping you're on this call because you're a leader in your organisation and you're really keen to start to drive the cloud conversation in your organisation, or you've been empowered to take that cloud conversation forward. Start to shift the conversation around the economics towards the 3 on the right. Start thinking about business agility, start thinking about operational resilience, and start thinking about staff productivity. I've given some definitions about what we use inside AWS, talking to our customers about that. But and if I think about particularly my journey inside the ATO moving to cloud, it certainly was very, very strong about cost savings. But the single biggest economic drivers for us were around operational resilience and business agility. And to give you an example about why they're so important in terms of optimizing your cloud journey, a lot of ATO systems are actually used by other actors in the tax system to be able to drive their business outcomes. So we've got tax agents, tax accountants, superannuation funds inside the ATO. All, for example, need to get access to ATO systems and access to ATO data to be able to meet the needs of their customers. A lot of our systems required significant updating and upgrading over weekends, which often meant that our systems weren't available 24/7, which certainly impacts the citizen experience, but it also impacts the industry experience in terms of being able to support those citizens. So a lot of what we were trying to do when I was at the ATO was the benefit of cloud was actually reducing lost business hours as much as it was trying to drive savings in infrastructure. And it was also really strongly aligned towards the speed within which we could put new services and new products in the market rather than taking months and months and months for those to happen. again, on the assumption that you're looking to take your organisation forward about moving to cloud, the economics is a really important part. We did highlight the fact that there's a business case for change as part of the migration acceleration framework. What I would say, though, is encourage you to broaden the conversation. It is about cost. It's equally about providing some benefits to your staff. It's equally about trying to improve operational resilience. We're also seeing that now really strongly around compliance, resilience, and certainly meeting higher expectations around cybersecurity. And there's also an advantage about business agility. For those of you who are charged with maybe being the leader of cloud in your organisation, my experience would be cost is a great starter. It has a shelf life. The more that you can start to have a broader conversation around what the economic benefits are, the more stakeholders you'll get that want to be involved in a conversation around cloud. The more that those stakeholders are involved in a conversation around cloud, the deeper you've got ownership of what you're trying to achieve. You start to remove some of the barriers and you start to go forward. For us then, I've talked a little bit about this before, the next kind of step down for us is really around migration readiness. And I know that you're all talking about how do I optimise my journey to cloud. So I kind of wanted to pivot this one here on the importance about discovering and organising data. It's really important, and it's really important to try to understand, so what workloads are we running? What's the integration links between those workloads? What's our future direction about those workloads? But for us, and I'm particularly thinking here about level of effort, we then start to pivot what we call the 7 R's of migration, from refactor, replatform, all the way down to retire. And I kind of talked about these a little bit before. For every customer that I'm working with on a migration journey, you will always see applications spread across these 7 categories. It's never, ever a complete refactor where you sit there and say, I want every single workload to be refactored to a cloud-native way of working. You don't see that you sit back and say that everything needs to be retained either. I've highlighted the 7 R's here. Certainly for us, relocate are things that are available to you right now in terms of VMware on AWS as an example, so a lift and shift of that nature. We're still seeing a lot of customers do rehosting. There's still some great operational benefits that you get from a rehost. We're also seeing SaaS options come through really strongly with repurchase, and then customers starting to take advantage of replatforming and refactor, but certainly where there's really strong business value to do that. The level of effort is not just in terms of workload, in terms of people that you need or partners to support you to actually migrate those workloads. The level of effort is really strongly associated with the application development capability that you're going to need on board, that architecture engineering capability that you'll need to start to drive the work that enables a workload to be replatformed and refactored to give you the business value that you want. Again, focusing on the idea of optimizing your cloud journey, don't necessarily think that one size fits all. Have a consideration that the data will give you some really strong information around what migration pattern best suits the workloads that you've got inside your real estate, so that then you can be really clear about how that migration approach gives you the business value that you need. So again, a lot of that will be about business and technical. There's a lot of things that we do want to do with things regarding, say, for example, refactoring organisations. But if you haven't got the resources available for you to be able to do that right now, then it might be a 2-part approach. You start with a rehost or a relocation of that workload across the cloud, and then when the resources do become available, you go down the path of committing those resources to a refactor. And then I'll just build this one out for you. What we're also then seeing is a really strong now investment in operating models. So for a lot of customers, and I noticed that the 50% rating was strongly around culture and behaviour, and sooner or later this becomes the number one issue that all leaders that we're working with on cloud migration start to think about. How do I change the culture and how do I change the way in which my organisation operates to be able to take advantage of our cloud? And I'm a bit of a fan here. This is probably more a personal view than an AWS view. I find you are going to need to deal with a culture, particularly around moving to cloud, and you are going to challenge people about the way in which they work. But what I would say is having a really clear technical roadmap first and being crystal clear to your organisation about what you're trying to do in terms of that roadmap to cloud means you can zero in on the cultural and the behavioural issues that actually need to change. My experience would be everybody understands how important this is. You can sometimes spend too much time having an esoteric conversation about how important this is. Zero in on this is the technical journey that we want to go through. And then once you've kind of understood what that looks like, then you'll be able to have some specific conversations around where your operating model needs to change. When I think a bit about the public sector, and we had a really strong conversation about this when I'm at the ATO, and I do almost all of my work with customers right now is around operating models, I'd probably summarise this as being one of the single biggest changes that you need to go through. You're moving away from a notion where somebody in business wants something from IT. They usually get asked for some very specific requirements. Then someone goes away and takes those requirements, follows a very specific procurement process to satisfy those requirements, make sure that you've addressed every element of accountability, that somebody got exactly what they asked for, might not be exactly what they needed. There tends to not be a conversation about what technical debt that's going to create. You're moving away from that model to a model around self-service, automation, strong governance with guardrails, and then certainly around consumption. That's the great advantage that cloud brings, is you're trying to make that shift. And I understand just how important that is, particularly if you're working inside an IT area and your apps development and your business teams are your customers. You want to create an environment where you only pay for what you use, and you're really clear about what you need to consume, and you're really conscious about not over provisioning what you need, so that you're actually sharing that cost across the whole organisation. But what we do see with customers is don't move to cloud and then keep the old ways of working, which are really strongly around procurement and requirements. Make sure you're making some adjustments about that to start to move towards self-service, automation and consumption. But what you do need to have are guardrails, so you're not increasing tech debt and you're not getting cost sprawl. This is a whole area that we're starting to see customers focus in as they go forward. And to kind of give you an example about that, this is the investment that people are making in maturing their operating model. Again, really trying to recognise the fact that one of the cultural changes that they want to make is an organisational shift from where they are today to where they need to be. I've just given an example. This is a pretty typical journey that an organisation will go through, where they've been operating some decent scale IT systems on some hosted platforms. We usually start by seeing customers create a cloud foundation team. We're then seeing the investment kind of mature itself into two key streams of work. A cloud business office, which is really the group that's providing that interaction between IT and business. Think about onboarding new workloads, onboarding new services, starting to think about what solutions can be for some of those business problems that you have. And then also a really strong investment back into platform engineering inside the IT organisation. And again, we've given some examples there about focusing on people who understand operations, understand security, understand platforming, networks, databases, etc. So a combination between cloud business office, really driving that business relationship, and including good financial management, and then a reinvestment into an engineering capability. For those going on a project to take your organisation from current state to future state, I've put some timeframes in there to help you. The Cloud Foundation team usually gets things started for the first 0 to 6 months as in project mode, but over a period of time you want to evolve that into an ongoing, enduring cloud capability that forms part of a cloud operating model that's driving you towards business outcomes. So that just wanted to share that with you as an example about where we're seeing customers go. Don't want you to think that's an organisational chart. It's actually capabilities to invest in. It's not necessarily meant to be that you've got to create an organisational construct called cloud business or cloud platform engineering. They're functional capabilities to invest in. You can kind of wrap a number of different organisational constructs around that. But again, to optimise your cloud journey, the sooner you invest in your own organisation's people to be able to drive that forward, and absolutely taking advantage of where partners can help you, then you're going to be on your way. Okay, Isaac, I think that probably covers the bits that I was planning on going through, so I think we're up to a poll question.
Correct, we are, but I think we will ask can you hear me all good?
I can hear you.
Yes? Perfect. So we will get to that poll question shortly, but what I might ask the audience, if the audience has any questions for Craig, we've also got Emma here as well, please send them over to us because we can use this opportunity to pick their brains while we've got them and put them on the hot seat. But I might kick things off with a question that I have. So cultural transformation is something that's super important, and it's come up now a few times in the poll and also in your discussion. What do you think how do I phrase this? What do you think is the most important kind of elements to looking for the right people, particularly when it comes to successful cloud transformation? So what is the key to success when upskilling and developing a cloud literate team across different industries?
That's a good question. I would probably answer that with my starting assumption is that everybody who currently works in the public sector IT teams is really by and large keen to take any kind of transformational journey once they understand where they fit into that kind of future program, Isaac. So the first thing I would say is really clear leadership around what an organisation is trying to achieve to cloud, and then secondly, kind of back that up with really clear decisions that what you're looking to do is to transform your help your existing organisation transform from current state to future state. Because if you don't do that, then what I see customers, particularly again in public sector, is those that currently have established ways of working and established power bases and really know what's going on tend to not be as forthcoming about wanting to move towards something different because they're worried about how that might impact their roles. So I'd start with, in terms of breaking through how to help skill and train your staff, then I would wrap around that first and foremost, really clear leadership from the leaders of an organisation about what the pathway is forward about the workforce, so that people can feel really comfortable about learning something new and then being confident that they can find where they might fit into that future organisation. I'd start with that. The second one for me is there's some great training programs that are available that will help people understand how cloud works. And then they tend to stay in functional laneways. So there's some great security programs, there's some great networking programs, there are some great programs regarding how to be a business leader in times of cloud. So I would take advantage of the partners that you're working with and see what training programs they've got. We run things like technical essentials, business essentials. They're all really great mass training programs, Isaac, for the whole of the organisation, and then you can drill those down even further with some specific programs. And then the last thing I would say is, and hopefully this came through as the earlier part of the presentation, don't underestimate the value of learning by doing. So appointing some people to come on board to actually start to assess workloads for migration, helping to build those foundations, and then getting actively involved in the migrations. Learning by doing is a fantastic way in order to help build up skills. So I'd start with some strategic direction, some strategic leadership, take advantage of some kind of like broader or mass training programs like Cloud Essentials, Tech Essentials. They'll give you both those, that business and that technical overview, and then learn by doing once you identify who the people are that are going to drive that forward for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thanks for that. Emma, do you have any thoughts on that question at all? Anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah. There's something I'd like to add and build on the point that Craig made earlier on. So cloud and the migration to cloud conversation normally starts with cost. But at a point, you start pivoting to conversation around business agility, staff productivity, and resilience, technology resilience. What happens at that point, as soon as you start having that conversation, the team become far more engaged because those are elements that live within their remit and their control. So that's one of the drivers for really changing that conversation from cost base into how can we be more productive, how can we be more agile. And that's a key point, I think, to getting the hearts and minds of the organisation into your endeavours.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much, guys. I guess one last thing just to leave our audience today. Do you both have any final tips for our audience, maybe one or two tips that you could provide our audience, particularly as some of them may be embarking on their journeys? Any final thoughts or any final things you'd like to share with them before we close the session?
I will go with embrace your partners. There's a sense sometimes that, and this has probably been one of my great bugbears about working in the public sector, is that sometimes we can become, and I spent more time on one side of the fence than the other side of the fence, we became far too insular focused. A move to cloud is about involving as many partners as you need, and I'm seeing a real lot of traction with partners. NEC is a great example of really committed now to helping their customers move to cloud. There's lots of help out there, and we're all really excited by being able to lean in as much as we can. So don't think you've got to do it all on your own. Take advantage of the fact that there are partners who are really ready to help, and embrace that as much as you can.
And
awesome.
I would build
and Emma, anything from you?
Yeah, I would build on that too with your partners are in your environment, they know your environment, and they will be able to help you identify the early pieces to start moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today. Thank you, Craig, for presenting and sharing those, and Emma for jumping on and answering the question and participating in this. Both of your wisdom and expertise was really greatly appreciated. So thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
No problems at all. Thank you very much for your time, and hope everyone enjoys the rest of the session. Cheers.
No problem. And guys, I'm sure you can connect with Craig and Emma and ask them any questions that you might have offline. I'm sure they'd be happy to hear from you guys and talk to you guys if you have anything that you'd like to ask them post-event. So definitely feel free to reach them if you like. I will also point out that there is a digital gift bag on the audience view that you guys can take a look at. There's some more information about what's been discussed throughout today in there. So definitely check that out, download the material, and let us know what you think about it. I wanted to ask you guys one more poll question. Actually, I've got two poll questions I wanted to ask you guys before we move into our next discussion. So how far along is your cloud transformation journey? How far along are you in the journey? I guess that's what I was trying to ask. Skills, availability, experience, confidence, security, existing CapEx on-prem. So please, in terms of these, let us know where you are at with these and click on one that's most relevant to you. And we'll be able to have a look at those results. And then we'll have one more as well that we'll check out too. So I'll give you guys a few seconds on this one. So let's have a look at these results. So security, 100% of you said security, which is quite interesting. So that's very interesting. And that's obviously something that came up just before as well when Craig was discussing that. So that's fantastic to see. The next question I have to ask you guys is, have you engaged with any organizations to review your journey to the cloud process? So the options here are no, not needed, no, but you plan to, yes, through strategy and advisory, or yes, for migration planning and execution or execution. So let us know whether you have done that, whether you've engaged with any organization. It'd be interesting to know if you've kind of instigated that change within your organization through these levels. So I'll give you a few seconds there and then we'll move on to our next one. And while we wait for you guys to answer those, I might get our next panelists to turn on their cameras and microphones, and I'll get Wendy and Yang Dong. If you guys can hear me, can you guys say hi?
Good morning. How are you?
Hello. Good.
Good morning.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, Yang
Great
Dong.
to be here.
Good morning. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. Let's quickly have a look at these results for this poll, and then we'll jump straight into the panel. So having a look at this, so have you engaged with any organizations to review your journey to the cloud process? 20% of you said no, not needed. 40% said no, but plan to, and then 40% of you have said yes for migration planning and or execution. So very interesting. The majority of you are either no, but plan to, or yes for migrating. So it's great to hear. Thank you for engaging in that. And we will kick off the panel today. So today for our panel discussion, we're joined by Yandong Fan, who's the Senior Manager of Transport Architecture at the Department of Transport Victoria, and Wendy Pryor, who's Head of Technology Strategy and Delivery at Museums Victoria. And today we're going to be having a conversation about exploring the evolving role of the role and application of cloud to accelerate innovation, modernize service delivery, and drive better outcomes for citizens. So Wendy and Yandong, hi, thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are you both?
Fine, thanks. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So it's a good day. So, and it's my pleasure to be here to learning from others and sharing my views on the cloud adoption journeys we have here.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for both of you for joining us today. It's great to have you both. So A little bit of background. So in order to capture the real value from cloud, I suppose the public sector needs to focus their investment and build a cloud-ready operating model. And cloud adoption and application can present many exciting and cost-efficient opportunities for government agencies and departments that will scale and optimize digital citizen service deliveries and offerings. So today we're going to talk about how cloud optimization at its fullest potential can drive and identify innovation and opportunity for digital growth and modernized service delivery for citizens. So Wendy and Yandong, but we'll start with Wendy. Can you tell us a bit about your journey with cloud and how it all started?
Okay, so my origins are in the web outside the DMZ. And from the mid-90s, 1990s that is, we were sharing code, tips and tricks from the first rudimentary websites. We never considered cybersecurity or where that data was stored. We just went at it and developed websites. So when preparing for this panel, I found a presentation that I gave to an international museum professionals conference in 2015, where I explained the cloud to people who knew nothing about it. And I likened its future to electricity flowing from a common provider, available as easily as clicking a switch and charged per consumption. I did not predict a timeline for that, but that's what I prophesized, if you like. In 2018, I presented at a national conference on Smart GLAM. Now, GLAM is galleries, libraries, archives and museums. That's the cultural sector where I work. And this time I shared examples and possibilities such as AI that can tell a forged drawing from a real thing, machine learning that can identify botanic specimens, sensors that can detect changes in humidity and act to protect museum artefacts, and museum objects that can tell their own stories. So we were really trying to open up the possibilities. But about this time, we became serious about the cloud and what could be outsourced. And that's almost anything except the accountability. So then we started developing security checklists and getting really serious about the way we approached it.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you, and I'm excited to hear more about that. Yandong, how about you? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how it all began as well?
Yes, thanks, Isaac. So the Department of Transport in Victoria has been merged from the former Public Transport Victoria, PTV, Vic Roads, and T4V about 2 years ago. But a lot of both PTV and Vic Roads have launched its digital transformation journey. So back to about like 7 or 8 years ago. So before that, there's probably a lot of debate versus like a security concern on cloud, and mission critical systems need to be stay in data center. But I think about like 7, 8 years ago, so we started looking at the opportunity of cloud as part of our digital transformation journey. And we're providing a bunch of services to the public, to citizens, including like timetable information, assisting customers to do the journey planning, and also the registration and licensing services that's provided to the citizens as well. And we look at the opportunity of cloud versus data centers, and with all the benefit, I think we consider cost saving, but more importantly, it's more on the business agility. So we made that choice that we will go to cloud to develop our digital properties, so our websites, mobile apps, our content management to support our passenger information display across the station and the vehicles, and also helping customer to like order and top up MyKey. That's all been basically considered is well fitted for the cloud hosting arrangement. And so it does help us to like create agility to provide those services in the digital channel that's been supported on 24/7. So that's where we are. So as part of the cloud adoptions, we're also enabling the automation tool sets and also enabling the DevOps and DevSecOps models inside the organization to support the continuous improvement. And we are still in the journey to maturing. So there's still a lot of things that's still sitting in our data center. We're still in a hybrid model. So we have a physical data center, we have cloud. But I think we are more and more towards to considering more what roles that we are supposed to migrate to cloud in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. And as I said before, I'm excited to hear about both of your journeys a little bit further as we get into it. So you're both on my hot seat today. So I've got a bunch of questions that I want to ask you both to continue on. So Yandong, maybe keeping with you, how have you achieved success with cloud adoption in recent years?
Yeah, so our experience is basically highlighted. There's probably three key things. There's the other things, but three key things I think is critical to achieve the cloud success. The first one is to get the executive support and buy-in to actually to support from a investment financial model perspective. And that requires a demonstration of cloud from our practice. The second point is that so to cultivate and also establish that I call the cloud-friendly or cloud-literate culture within the organization. And the third one is that building a strong partnership with our cloud provider and cloud service support partners. So to iterate a bit on those 3 points, so to get the executive buy-in, it's important to build that culture. So by doing that, so we need to basically demonstrate the value of cloud quite clearly. So I mentioned there is a cost-saving perspective, but our focus is more on the business agility. So for example, in a 2020 and 2021, during the response to COVID, so we have been basically forced to accelerate the digital transformation within the organization, because a lot of the services are no longer available in a physical sense. So we have limited customer that allow to visiting our customer service center for the registration licensing services. We stopped processing the cash on our network in terms of paying the services as well. So to enable that digitization and accelerate that digitization, so one example is that so there's a lot of constraint on our mainframe backend system to enable. And what we are able to leveraging cloud technology is to build a data layer in the cloud environment to replicate the mainframe data into the cloud environment. So though in that sense, this data actually been made available 24/7 to support the digital channels. And this has been quite successfully implemented in a very timely manner. So to enable the vehicle registration transfer online 24/7, the learners testing services online, and also checking your merit point online and top up your Mighty cards real time online. So without cloud technology, so I can't imagine how this can be achieved in such a tight timeline in terms of a emergency response. So that's roughly my thinking on how a cloud journey can be successful. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Wendy, how about you? Have you achieved success with your cloud?
That's tricky after Yandong's fantastic 3 points, which I could repeat, but I won't. So obviously we're a smaller scale organisation than the Department of Transport. So I'd say be clear about what success looks like and what we're trying to achieve and what are the benefits and how we'll measure them, because that's where we can reiterate and feed more back into the business. We had to clarify non-negotiable compliance obligations like cybersecurity and where our data is stored. We're under fairly strict obligations for that. And determine scope, always. It could be a niche software that we're adopting for a limited group of staff, or it could be wholesale transition of a data center to the cloud. So act accordingly. Review governance standards and enablers. We had some issues, for example, with our firewall, that we had to do some upgrades before we could move a great deal to the cloud in order to retain our connectivity and speed. And then there's the old communicate with stakeholders. So I guess our greatest success was rolling out Microsoft 365 early in 2020 after we had just begun working from home. And supporting staff to adopt new ways of working was the key challenge. This required communication, patience, clarity, and the ability to support multiple learning styles to get people over that line working effectively from home.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for both answering that question. The next thing I wanted to ask, and Wendy, I'll let you kick this one off, what models can work best for cloud, particularly in your area and at Museums Vic? What model works best for you guys?
Great question, Isaac. So for us, choosing a model depends where we are now with our legacy systems and where we want to go, because we're very aspirational. And then there are the drivers. So some of the drivers that could be in place are compliance, exponential data growth, the need to improve the employee or the customer experience. It's always paramount. Low or high budgets and mandates from above. So sometimes you get a mandate to do something, whether it's a great idea or not. And perhaps you're a lucky organisation with a cloud-first strategy, or born in the cloud organisation, in which case I envy you. But ours is currently a hybrid solution. So we've got data and applications on-prem and in the cloud at the moment. And we'll have that for at least in the short term. We think that hybrid cloud leverages the best of private and public clouds. And as was mentioned by Craig, you have to understand the workloads that you're moving into the cloud in order to match the cloud solution. So our strategy requires us to consider what we can leverage. It might be a whole of government arrangement, or a shared service, or a partner, or expanding the use of one of our existing services like Microsoft 365, rather than automatically adding a new product. And we do consider the total cost of ownership. So I totally take on board what Craig was saying, but we do have to consider the total cost of ownership for the cloud service and ongoing staff support. That's it.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thanks, Isaac.
Wonderful. And Yandong, how about you? What do you think about the right model and the model that's best for you?
Yeah, I think Wendy shared a great experience on the Museum Victoria's experience. On the department side, so of transport side, so we also still have a hybrid model. So we still have a mission critical system sitting in on-prem. So mainly those like train control system, our traffic light management, and the highway freeway management system. But we have a lot of digital systems, and the we call commodity services systems are sitting in cloud already. We mainly utilizing public clouds with a combination of different cloud service models, including software as a services, platform as a services, and infrastructure as services. So really depending on the workload. So for commodity services, it's more and more pushing to the SaaS model. But there is some business domain specific workloads or applications are still leveraging the infrastructure as a services or platform as a services. In terms of the cloud operating model, so we are building strong business enablement, like cloud enablement teams or squads within the organization. So they're basically focusing on the customer experience continuous improvement, more focusing on the release chain for new features to the customer. In terms of the cloud support enablement, so given that we are a government department, so we are more leveraging the partnerships. So we do have our cloud support partnerships working with us very closely. So the department are focusing on the cloud evolution journey, architecture, and also the overall platform strategies. And our cloud support partners are actually helping us to maintain the well-architected environment, and also maintaining and optimizing the cloud environment to better support our business enablement needs. So that's kind of the model we are adopting here. So there's still a lot of opportunities for us to continue to improve, because I think we are probably in that like a stage 3 to continue to modernize and optimize our cloud technology within the organization.
Wonderful, fantastic. And I think there's a couple of things there that the audience can definitely take away, because there are obviously different types of cloud models that they work, and it always depends on the business and picking the right one for your business. So I suppose the next question that I wanted to ask you both, and I did ask this to Craig and Emma before as well, around the culture piece. So what do you both look for when hiring the best talent for a successful cloud transformation, and what is the key to success when upskilling and developing your cloud literate teams? So Wendy, maybe did you want to take this one first?
Okay.
What do you think?
I'll have a go at that. So tech talent is currently in short supply. So this will influence our approach to recruiting and developing our team. And lately I've had advice to consider the offer. It's got to include flexible work provisions, elevate the brand, what we can offer to a candidate that think might be attractive to them. We're the museum, we can offer dinosaurs, we can offer IMAX cinema, whatever. But what makes us special, and why would someone want to work with us? I've also had advice lately to expedite the time to offer. Keep the candidates close. If you want that person, keep them close and engaged during the recruitment process, and that's what we'll be doing, because they could look elsewhere fairly smartly. I look for eagerness, smarts, and I look for a finisher, because they are always in short supply. Smart and gets the job done is the best thing of all. That's my mantra. So the promise must equal the reality of the role, or they won't stay. We want to develop a continuous learning culture and focus on the employee's experience. Look for willingness to reskill, cross-skill and develop, because no one can stay still. We all have to keep learning all the time. Develop a team culture and not a hero culture. We work together to get these things done. And building from what Craig said, to keep them interested with key projects where they understand what contribution it's making to the organisation and their role, so that they're well versed in why they're doing it. And then keep checking on them. How are they going? What's working for them? What else do they need? And get them really embedded in the organisation. So it's getting people on board, but then getting them to keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. Thanks, Isaac.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very important as well. No worries. It's very important to encourage continuous learning, particularly as tech changes like the wind. It's always changing and it's always advancing, so it's very important to do that. And Yendong, do you have any thoughts on that one as well?
Yeah, I think Wendy summarized very well in terms of different aspects that the talents we're looking for, and the journey to uplift and helping those staff to progress within the organization. So I just have 2 points that I further emphasize. One is exactly, I completely agree, is the learning capability we're looking for from the talent, because cloud is a fast-changing environment. So we do want to see our staff have that like a passion to actually continue to learn and also keep up with the fast change happening in the cloud technology and digital technology. The second point is that so the sensitive to the business needs, leveraging technology to help. So the technology eventually need to basically enable or benefit the business, and we do see people that sometimes it's have a bit of disjoint between the technology and the business needs, and we see anyone that's we're looking for as a talent to join the organization will have that business sensitive to understand so the problems in the business domains, and continuously explore opportunities in the business domain, leveraging the technology, no matter it's cloud or digital or innovations, to actually to enable the business either operational efficiency or customer experience improvement. So that's the core things. In terms of the skill set evolution or uplifting the skill set within the organization, I think Craig and Wendy mentioned already. So the partnership with our market industry expertise is important. So we normally probably not that often to send our staff to do a like extensive training anymore. So we don't see that's the best way to upskill. We are actually seeing the participation in those like for example, AWS running a lot of it like I'm in charge of architecture functions. So our solution architects, digital architects, cloud architects are very often working with like a cloud provider like AWS running those architecture design sections, workshops in tackling particular problems, and they learned a lot more if just purely doing some theoretical or hand-on trainings. So we do see people are actually learning probably more from doing stuff and doing via collaboration. So that's how we managing the uplifting and skill sets evolution within our department.
Wonderful, awesome. And thank you both for sharing that insight. And I hope that's definitely some areas that our audience can take away some notes there and apply that to their next wizard when it comes to looking for the right person to come along and help them and support their cloud literacy. So you've both been fantastic with all my questions, and I have one last question that I want to ask both of you today. So how can cloud present an ability to create innovative service offerings? So Yandong, maybe did you want to start with this one?
Yes, thanks, Isaac. So for the question, it's great because yeah, I think innovation is a continuous hot topic for pretty much all organizations. So since DOT been merged about 2 years ago, we launched our innovation program. So within the organization, so the opportunities we're looking at is quite broad because transport is pretty much a technology or innovation-driven industry. So the things in our agenda, including the connected vehicles in terms of benefit the drivers and also provide safety protection to the drivers. And so providing real-time information to our customer, especially during disruption situations. And we also have a lot of other initiatives in terms of leveraging AI to provide better prediction on like traffic congestion. A mobility as a service is another one that we want to enable multimodal journey choice for customer, no matter they're using cars, public transport, bicycle, or just using e-scooter or other active transport modes. So the cloud is a good or a better way to enable these kind of ideas in a lot of sense. Like one is that so we need to build a test bed for those innovative ideas. And I can't imagine without cloud how this can be achieved in a like timely and agility manner. So we're building test beds for those innovations using cloud technology in the past like 1 year and achieve a lot. And this is not something that can be done easily if we're using an on-prem or a data center perspective. Another point is that so this innovation idea require a lot of collaborations across different parties. So the department is one, so we also need to collaborate with federal government, local governments, research institutes, academic institutes like universities, and also like a lot of like technology companies like vehicle manufacturers and data analytical company, AI, a solution provider. So if without a cloud, this collaboration is very hard to achieve. So we basically seen the cloud is a biggest enabler to facilitate the collaboration among our department with a lot of other third-party participants. And it does present the evidence that this can be achieved via the cloud technology to facilitate this collaboration more streamlined. And basically, so I think innovation is a interesting area. So a lot of those ideas being driven by heavy data, and again, cloud is probably the most convenient and best platform to enable big data analytics, and AI related activities. they're all well fitted into the cloud technologies' merits and their advantages. So yes, a lot of things we are doing are actually relying on cloud.
Perfect, great. And Wendy, how about you? Any final thoughts there? How can cloud present an ability to create innovative service offerings?
Well, it's everywhere. So people were spending more time online than ever before, even before the pandemic. And we predict that that isn't going to change. So the competition for eyeballs and time online is greater than ever. And the cloud, above all, promises speed, flexibility, and experimentation, or innovation, as Yandong said. That was absolutely brilliant. So we've studied customer experience in general, what works, and then tried make the customer experience invisible in the sense that it's seamless, easy, and unobtrusive, like a comfy chair. It lets you do the thing that you set out to do. And in the museum, you might be finding or buying or booking or registering or learning. There are many, many ways that we use these tools in the museum. Understanding the specific customer experience that you must deliver is important, and then choose the technology and tools to imagine it, to deliver it, to measure it, and to improve it. And those tools are most likely to be cloud tools. So the cloud can be the best facilitator to enable that experience, tools that measure success, tools that increase reliability and security, tools that manage queues online, tools that enhance all of the experiences that we offer. And that's where we're putting our energies, in the cloud.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for answering my questions so perfectly and being here with us today to participate in the panel. You've survived the pressure of my hot seat very well, so well done to both of you. But I really appreciate having you both join us today. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac.
No problem. With
Thanks,
that, everybody,
Yandong.
we have... Oh, no way. No worries. So with that, we will move on to some final remarks for the day to close the event up. And I have a few more questions that I wanted to ask you, the audience. So would you be interested in a review of current areas for cloud optimization? So let us know on that. And whilst we have that up, Mike, I might get you to come back on to do some closing remarks and anything else you'd like to add and final thoughts. So Mike, if you're still on.
Thank you, Isaac. Look, I think it's been a great session. Great session so far. I think the three big things I took out of today was establish a baseline. Assessment was a big part of that vernacular. Get executive and organisational buy-in. What and why are we doing? What's the vision for the organisation? And start. It's a continuous journey. You know, it's relative to your organisation and where you're at, but develop that culture. Be supportive, keep learning, evolving, growing, accelerating, and leverage your partners. As I mentioned in my earlier introduction comments today, NEC is an established capability to support you on your journey to the cloud. We have a business advisory team, and we have a 10-day fixed price consulting engagement to start your journey to the cloud. The exercise is pretty light touch, requires less than a day engagement in your organisation, and we use some sophisticated tools to gather data and do our analysis and then provide a very comprehensive report back to you, which gives you the assessment of your application topology, and we know how important that is in your journey to the cloud. That particular engagement we've subsidised, and we're offering it for a $10,000 fixed price fee. And we'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. We've included details in the gift bag, as well as a reference case study from the WA government. Lastly, I'd really like to say thanks to Isaac and the team, AWS, and to Wendy and Yandong. I think it's been a great morning. And just to draw you back to the comment I passed earlier, we have another webinar. This one's on cybersecurity, and we know that's 100% on your mind. So 28th of October. Look out for that invitation. We hope to see you there. Back to you, Isaac.
Thanks, Mike. And just to reiterate that, yes, we will be having that cyber event in October, so definitely keep your eyes peeled for the invitations to that, everyone. We look forward to seeing you at that one. It's going to be great. And yeah, I appreciate everyone joining. Thank you to all of our speakers, as Mike said, and NEC as well. So hope to see you all soon. Have a great week. Have a great long weekend if you are in New South Wales and Victoria and some of the other states. But yeah, we look forward to seeing you at the next event. So have a good week, everyone.